Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Saucy Picks MMA show. I'm your host, Skylar Lurwell. I'm excited to announce the launching of this channel. It's been in the works for a minute now, and man, I'm excited for it. Hopefully, and on this channel, I'll be covering basically all combat sports, all MMA, the PFL, the UFC, Bellator, Jiu-Jitsu competitions. We'll just be covering it all. We'll be going over all combat sports, which is super exciting. I've been a lifelong fan of MMA, and yeah, I'm excited to share my thoughts. So, before we get into it, let's cover last week. So last week, just brief review was Alex Pereira versus Khalil Roundtree, which ended up being a great fight. Honestly, the card overall was an okay card. The co-main event, as expected, was a letdown, which was Raquel Pennington versus Juliana Pena, which I had Raquel Pennington winning rounds 1, 3, and 5, and I had her winning the fight. The judges saw otherwise, but I guess you can't argue with the judges. But I had Raquel winning it in a really boring fight. I mean, I know, it was a boring fight, needless to say. Unfortunate injury for Kevin Holland on the main card. He had a rib injury against Roman Dolidze. Kayla Harrison looked phenomenal as usual. She dominated her way through Caitlin Vieira, and she should get the next title shot. It was a pretty unfortunate call out from Juliana Pena to call out Amanda Nunes. I can't imagine the UFC bringing Amanda Nunes back to fight Juliana Pena. If I was to draw it up, I would draw it up with Kayla Harrison coming in, most likely dominating Juliana Pena. There's not much Juliana will be able to do to stop Kayla Harrison. As soon as Kayla Harrison has that belt wrapped around her waist, I imagine the call out for Amanda Nunes will then be taken a little more seriously. And I would guess they bring her back for that matchup, which honestly is a great fight. Sign me up. Jose Aldo versus Mario Bautista. I scored it for Jose Aldo. It was a split decision. I didn't think Mario Bautista did really anything in the third round. There's a difference between actively grappling and stalling, and Mario Bautista was simply stalling that whole third round. And the second round, he stalled quite a bit as well. Jose Aldo was active. He looked faster than he ever has. I mean, he looked good. Mario Bautista simply just stalled his way through that. Um, but yeah, it was overall a great fight card. The main event, of course, as we know, Alex Pereira versus Khalil Roundtree. Um, man, props to Khalil. Khalil really he looked good. The first two rounds he looked good. He looked like a world beater. He won a lot of respect in my eyes for sure. He is a tough son of a gun. Seems like most guys uh, would have gone down to the shots earlier in the fight. I mean, Khalil really took a beating, but props to him for sure. He looked really good. At least in the first two rounds, and then of course Pereira just he managed to find his flow state in that third and fourth round, and wow, he looked good. His head movement, he used every weapon in his arsenal. His knees, his elbows, his body shots, his boxing was phenomenal. I was really impressed with his head movement. But yeah, he did, like I said, he hit that flow state and he put the beating on Khalil. He stopped him in the fourth round, which I a lot of us were assuming he would do. I had Pereira by knockout in the third round. I didn't think it would end as early as most did, and I was just shy one round, so it ended in the fourth. But man, I think the story here is there's two different stories. Pereira is forming a legacy in just 3 short years, which is amazing what he's done. And then Khalil, he looked tough, man. He is a tough sucker. He really did take a beating. But yeah, it was like I said, a great fight weekend. The prelims were actually not bad. There was a couple underwhelming performances, but overall they weren't terrible. Unfortunate for Wonder Boy to take the loss like that, but Buckley earned it. I mean, he really did. I think we all assumed him to go in with that wrestling game plan, and he did. Went in there and wrestled, and it was a big right hand that knocked out Wonder Boy. Props to him for sure. But anyway, getting to this week's card, it's not a bad fight card. There's a few debuts happening in here. Main event, of course, as we know, is Brandon Royval versus Tatsu Taira. Tatsu Taira has been on my radar for really since he got in the UFC. He's looked phenomenal, and just recently he's been able to beat Alex Perez, which was a good win. Not an overly not an overwhelming win by any means, just because of the way that it was stopped. But I mean, Tatsu Tairo's a beast. He's been looking good ever since he got into the UFC. But I'll just start. I'll start at the bottom of the card, work my way up. I'll give you kind of a fight breakdown, and then if there is some betting advice, I'll throw it out there, and then I will give you a pick for the fight. So starting off, we have Clayton Carpenter versus Lucas I guess Hocha. This is Lucas Hocha's debut. Clayton Carpenter's sophomore outing in the UFC. Um, I guess the way I look at this fight is Lucas has to defend takedowns in his Dana White's Contender Series fight. He honestly did not look as good as I thought he was going to. He got in there and he got taken down. I want to say it was 7 or 8 times. It could have been even 9 times. He got taken down a lot, and he was controlled for a majority of that fight, at least that first round. Of course, the second round comes out and he was able to find a really well timed knee. It was a picture perfect knee, landed on the jaw of his opponent and put his opponent face first into the canvas, which I mean was a great win for him. But again, the takedown defense uh, was not super impressive. Clayton Carpenter, he kind of has it all. His striking is not bad. His jiu-jitsu game is not bad as well. His wrestling could use some work for sure, but I think for Clayton here, he's got to go in there and he can strike with Lucas for sure. But I think his easiest path to victory would be taking him down and trying to find a submission. Overall, for a pick, I would probably pick Clayton Carpenter to win this fight. Again, I think the takedowns will come easily for him, and I do think he can strike with Lucas as well. So for a pick, I will take Clayton Carpenter. As we see here, betting odds, he's a 170 minus 175 favorite as opposed to Lucas being a plus 145 underdog. Moving on to the second fight on the card, we have Dan Argueta here versus Cody Haddon. Um, yeah, the Dan Argueta is going to come out and he's going to do what he does and he's going to spam takedowns. His striking is very low level. His wrestling is good, but the problem I see with Dan is once he is able to get his opponent down to the ground, he doesn't do much with it. His submission game is not very good. His ground and pound is just not there. And Cody Haddon, he is young in the game. You can watch tape on him. I was watching tape on him earlier this week, and he definitely is young, inexperienced. He's very green. But I think in this fight, if even if the fight goes to the ground, he's gonna be a danger to Dan. He's got submission. Cody Haddon has submission game. His striking is levels above Dan Argueta's. So if Cody can keep this on the feet, he'll piece Dan up. And if Argueta can get it to the ground, I just don't see him really doing much with his takedowns. So Cody, even if he does get taken down, he'll be able to uh, be more active from guard than Dan will be on top. And if he's not active from guard, he is able to find, he's able to get his back to the cage, crawl up and at least get it back to his feet. So for the pick, I'm going to take Cody Haddon here. I believe this is his debut as well. But again, Dan has basically only wrestling. He doesn't have anything else but wrestling. He he spams his wrestling and he's able to get a lot of them. I believe in his last fight, he was able to get nine or 10 takedowns, but then he got caught in a guillotine and got submitted in the second round with there was like 9 or 10 seconds left, and he tapped to a guillotine. So I think Cody Haddon here will be able to not necessarily stuff takedowns, but he'll still be a threat, and he'll be able to get back to his feet. He'll be able to land the bigger shots, the better shots on Nargetta, and I think he'll probably win this fight by decision. So for the pick, I'm going to go with Cody Haddon by decision. Okay, moving on to the third fight on the card. We've got Chris Barnett, the Beast Boy, versus Junior Tafa. This is kind of, I don't know, it's a good matchup for sure, but this is just a very low level fight. Uh, Chris Barnett, I want to say he's got one win in the UFC, and I believe Junior Tafa is in the same boat. He's got one or two UFC wins. The good news for this fight is I don't believe anyone will be taking the other down, which is that's great. The lines here are um, honestly minus 380 to plus to Beast Boys plus 300. It seems wide to me. I would probably put this closer to a pick 'em, if not a slight favorite to Junior Tafa. Um, just because of his kickboxing accolades. He does have some hands. He's got some good kickboxing. Chris Barnett is fast. He doesn't move like a heavyweight, but I don't think he'll be able to keep up with Junior Tafa striking here. Of course, he's got a puncher's chance, as most do, but Junior Tafa will I think be able to find the better strikes, the bigger shots. He'll mix in some leg kicks, some body kicks, as opposed to Chris Barnett. He's more strictly hands. Of course, he does have his kicks, and we've seen him with a wheel kick for knock an opponent out. But I think Junior Tough will be able to land the better shots. He's going to be a better kickboxer, and he's 10 years younger, of course, which is huge. So the pick here is going to be Junior Tafa, and there's not much value on his line. Um, but anyway, the pick will be Junior Tafa. So moving on to Nico Price versus Themba Greenbow. Um, this is an intriguing matchup. It kind of boils down to, I mean, Themba does have some striking skills, uh, but Nico has a lot of volume. He'll be peppering and peppering and peppering Themba the whole fight. Of course, as we know, Themba has some wrestling skills, which I think will be his game plan going into this fight. If he's able to go in there and mix in the takedowns and get Nico down on the ground, and honestly, I think he can find a submission. I don't know if he will, but I think the opportunities will present themselves. However, with saying that, Nico Price is not out of this fight. He does have a shot. His volume is good. We've seen him have some very unorthodox knockouts. Um, hammer fists from the bottom and up kicks from the bottom and just some weird knockouts. And like I said, he does have quite a bit of volume. He's got relatively, heavier hands than I thought he was going to have against uh, the Great White. I'm spacing his name at the moment. Um, Alex Morono. He had heavier hands and better striking and more striking than I thought he was going to, and frankly, his chin held up a lot better than I thought it was going to. I did have Alex Morono winning that, and I thought it was going to be by some sort of KO, but Nico's chin somehow held up. He's been in some wars. He's older. He's 35, and of course Themba is only 33. But the tread on Nico Price's tires is definitely worn down much more than Themba's. So for the pick for this fight is probably going to be Themba Greenbow. I would guess by decision. He's gonna clinch against the cage, work his takedowns, do what he does, and I do think he gets this done by decision. As far as the betting odds go here, and again, I'm recording this on Sunday, so the odds are definitely going to change. These are early odds, but there's not much value on either side. Maybe a Themba by decision. But other than that, I don't see much value on the money lines. On to the next fight, we've got Jonathan Pierce versus Pat Sabatini. Chinny said Pat Sabatini. Uh, this is going to be. We'll see how this one goes. The lines are actually not bad. There could be some value there on both sides. Jonathan Pierce is going to be a wrestler. That's just what he's going to be, and Pat Sabatini is phenomenal wrestler in his own right. So we'll see how those exchanges go. I think Jonathan Pierce will be able to time the takedowns, uh, and will be able to get those takedowns, not necessarily easily, but the timing that he'll have on them, he'll be able to get Pat Sabatini down to the ground. He'll work a little bit of ground and pound, and of course be looking for those submissions that he does look for. As far as Pat goes, it's hard to say because he is chinny. So maybe on the Jonathan Pierce side, he may want to strike with him, avoid the takedowns, and try and knock him out because we've seen against Diego Lopez, which Diego does have quite a bit of power, but Pat got knocked out early, and it didn't take much from Diego to knock out Pat Sabatini. So I guess maybe on the Jonathan Pierce side, Jonathan may want to keep this fight standing. Pat Sabatini will probably want to work in the wrestling and takedowns and work his jiu-jitsu, which he does have phenomenal jiu-jitsu, but Jonathan Pierce, I think he'll be able to stuff those takedowns, if not get his own takedowns, and probably land the better shots. He will work in kicks. He'll work in some teep kicks, which are really good. He'll work in leg kicks. His hands are not terrible. Definitely think that Jonathan Pierce will have the striking advantage here. For the pick, I'll go with Jonathan Pierce, and I would guess it's going to be by decision, unless he can, if he can find the holes and land on Pat Sabatini. He's a chinny dude, man. Anything can happen there, but for the pick, we'll go with Jonathan Pierce. Next up is CJ Vergara versus Ramazanbek Tamirov. So this is Tamirov's uh, debut, which is he's a good fighter. I was able to find some film on him. He fought in Ryzen for quite a long time, and it's funny because he has wrestling accolades and background, but he really likes to strike. And when he does strike, he throws bombs, man. Every shot he throws is he's wanting to put the guy down. So CJ will have to keep this fight at a distance. He's going to need to really manage distance well, use his kicks, his low kicks, body shots. He's going to have to avoid the big hooks from Tamirov because Tamirov does run in with big hooks, and when he lands, he really does have some power. And as far as the Tamirov side goes, he needs to make this a dirty boxing war. When he gets inside and he starts throwing, the dirty uppercuts, and his right hook is very heavy. He's got a big right hand. If he can make it dirty, a really scrappy match, he'll be able to land some big shots and put the hurt on CJ Vergara. But like I said, if CJ can keep it at distance and keep it cleaner as opposed to a dirtier fight, he could get this done. I think the pick here is pretty obviously Tamirov. He's got some heavy hands, and I do think he can put CJ into the canvas if he lands really any shots. CJ's got a chin for sure, but Tamirov has some heavy hands. So the pick here is going to be Tamirov. It's probably going to be by decision, but I would not be surprised if Tamirov is able to finish CJ Vergara here. And again, with these betting odds, money line wise, there's not much value on either side. That you could, I mean, maybe a Tamirov by decision would be potentially a good bet. You're definitely running the risk though with how heavy his hands are. But again, the pick will be uh, Ramazanbek Tamirov. Up next, we've got Chidi Njokuani and Jared Gooden. They've got Jared Gooden here as the underdog, and he's probably the rightful underdog, but he has a shot in this fight. He lands a lot of strikes per minute. His volume is pretty high as opposed to Chidi Njokuani's his volume is not near what Jared Gooden's is. Njokuani probably has um power advantage, I would say. But Jared Gooden definitely has the volume. The one thing I will say on Jared Gooden's side that he does have is in his last fight, we were able to see him go out and get a takedown and find a rear naked choke submission, which could pose a threat to Chidi. However, Chidi's takedown defense is pretty good. I want to say it was in the 73, 74 percentile. So he's able to stuff the takedowns for sure. But if Jared can find a way to take him down, um, he absolutely could do some damage there, and it's possible to even find a submission. Um, for the pick is Chidi and Jaquani, probably by decision. However, there with Jared at the line he's at plus 150, there's some value there. Again, his volume's good. He poses the threat of the takedown. So I wouldn't count him out in this fight. Again, the pick will be Chidi and Jaquani, but Jared Gooden definitely has a shot. Up next, we have Josh Fremd versus Abdul Razak Al Hassan. Abdul Razak Al Hassan is old. He's getting up there in age. He's 39 years old now, as opposed to Josh Fremd's 30. Josh Fremd is coming off a loss to oh man, I'm spacing his name now. It'll come to me. He's coming off a loss. And Abdul Razak Al Hassan is coming off of the back of the head shots to Cody Brundage. This is, I think this fight's going to go one of two ways. It's going to be Abdul Razak Al Hassan by knockout, most likely early, or it's going to be Josh Fremd by decision. Um, I tend to lean Josh Fremd just because of the takedowns that he has on his side, and if he's able to survive that first round, which I do believe he can, uh, he'll be able to find takedowns against Al Hassan and just work him out or work him over for 2, 3 rounds and win a decision. Andre Petrovsky, that just came to me. Josh Fremd is coming off a loss to Andre Petrovsky. Um, but like I said, I think the odds are probably correct here. Al Hassan is probably the rightful favorite. But again, it's going to probably be knockout in the first round or bust on Abdul. So Josh Fremd with sitting here with a live bet opportunity potentially after that first round, you might want to play the live bet there. But even now at plus 125, it's not a bad price on him. It's just getting through that first round is going to be tricky for him. But for the pick, I'm going to go with Josh Fremd here by decision. I think he can survive that first round of haymakers from Abdul, and once he can kind of weather the storm there, he'll be able to in the second and third round he'll wear on Abdul, and I think he'll be able to grind him out for 3 rounds. So moving on to Daniel Rodriguez versus Alex Morono. So this is going to be the battle of volume. Both these guys have really good volume on the feet. I tend to lean Daniel Rodriguez here. Reason being is Morono, he did not look very good in his last fight against Nico Price. He gassed out relatively early, and if I remember right, it was a short notice fight for Alex Morono, but he just didn't look that good. He's always, he's bouncing on his toes the whole fight and trying to play at distance, but Daniel Rodriguez is going to make this fight dirty. He's gonna land some big shots. He's gonna hurt Alex Morono, and he's 3 years older than Alex, but I think Daniel Rodriguez uh will be able to land the bigger shots. Again, his volume is really high. It's a high pace, and Alex Morono, I mean, when it does look like he's doing a lot at times, um, but oftentimes he's just bouncing on his toes and peppering with jabs. He's 1-2s, jab jab 1-2. It's nothing crazy. Where Daniel Rodriguez is going to have some heavier hands. He's going to land the bigger shots, and he's going to have the same volume, if not more, than Alex Morono. So I'm going to stay away from this fight betting wise, because again, it'll probably be a decision, and who wants to leave who wants to leave a ticket in their hand with when it goes to a decision anymore, but. The pick will be Daniel Rodriguez, and probably by decision. So on to the main card here. We have got Corey McKenna versus Julia Pilastri. Um, Corey McKenna, I question her fight IQ. I know she's a grappler and she loves the wrestling, uh, but I just question her fight IQ. And I want to say it was her last fight. Um, I'm spacing the name, but Jacqueline Amaram. She was fighting Jacqueline, and just right away she took her down. And if you're taking Jacqueline Amaram down, you are most likely going to get submitted. She is nasty on the ground. Her jiu-jitsu is phenomenal. So for Corey McKenna to go out there and just right away take her to the ground and lay in her guard like she did, it just wasn't very impressive to me. Um, However, I do think in this fight she can do better on the ground than, of course, against Jacqueline. Julia Pilastri. She's more of a striker than a grappler, but she does have jiu-jitsu accolades. So that's where that worries me for Cora McKenna. Um, if Julia can keep this on the feet, she will have better striking than Corey will. Um, and even if Corey gets this to the ground, I'm just having a hard time seeing how she's going to win this. I mean, maybe if she lays in her guard and holds her there for 3 rounds, with Julia's Brazilian jiu-jitsu background, she's going to be able to be active off her back and find ways out, find sweeps, get her back to the cage and get up to her feet. Yeah, and if she takes Corey McKenna's back, it could be trouble for Corey. So for the pick here, I'm probably going to go with Julia Pilastri here. Corey McKenna could get it done. The only way that that's going to probably happen is if she just takes her down and lays in her guard. It doesn't allow Julia to um, really work at all, and that's going to be just going to be hard to do. So for the pick here, I'm going to go with Julia Pilastri, but it's women's MMA, so of course anything can happen here. Um, but yeah, moving on to next fight, we have what I think of as a couple of grapplers here. We've got Grant Dawson versus Rafa Garcia. Both guys like to grapple. Rafa went out in his last fight. He beat Clay Guida by decision. He looked okay. His boxing is not bad for sure. Grant Dawson, of course, as we know, is a phenomenal grappler. His wrestling is really good. His ground and pound is good as well. So he should be the rightful favorite here for sure. Um, I think Grant Dawson's wrestling is going to be better than Garcia's for sure. So if Grant can go out there, time the takedowns, just work his stuff, try and take the back, work his ground and pound, elbows. He'll be able to find success that way. And for Rafa Garcia, his striking and his boxing is probably going to be just a slightly better than Grant's. But his wrestling, I don't think will hold up. He'll be able to stuff 1 or 2 takedowns, but once Grant times a well placed takedown, he'll be able to get it to the ground and start to work his stuff. So as far as the pick goes, the pick is going to be Grant Dawson. Money line wise, I'm going to steer clear from that. A minus 400 favorite that's a heavy favorite, and really you shouldn't be. I mean, anyone in the UFC, if minus 400 favorite is a scary bet. So I'll probably stay away from this fight money line wise. Maybe a over 2.5 or fight to go to the decision. Prop would be the play here. I'd have to see. Again, those lines haven't come out yet, but once they do, we'll see there. But again, the pick will be Grant Dawson. The co-main event here, we have got Brad Tavares versus Jung Young Park. This is a fight that has been rebooked. I want to say it was a month or month and a half ago. This fight was booked. I believe Brad Tavares pulled out due to injury. Um, I could be wrong though. It could have been the other way around. Either way, though, we've got Brad Tavares, Jung Young Park. This fight is pretty intriguing, actually. Both older guys, they've been around the block. They both have pretty good experience. I think Jung Young Park is going to get outstruck here by Brad Tavares. Brad's kickboxing is really good. His kicks are phenomenal. His leg kicks, as we saw against Chris Weidman, they're really good. Heavy kicks, body kicks, and he's able to go up top with them as well. Uh, the the best thing for Brad Tavares here, though, is his takedown defense. I think Jung Young Park will get hit a couple of times here, and once he does, he's going to try and shoot for takedowns. And Brad Tavares is a tough man to take down. His takedown defense is phenomenal. It's really high. I believe it's in the 80% or 80 percentile. He's very good at defending takedowns, and if Jung Young Park can't get it to the ground, I just have a hard time seeing him win. Um, Brad Tavares is just going to find his timing, find his groove, hit that flow state, and be able to mix up his weapons, low kicks, body kicks, fast hands. So I think, and they've got him here as a plus 145 underdog. I think there's a lot of value there. I think Brad Tavares he's live here to win this fight. If Jung Young Park can't get his takedowns going, Brad Tavares is going to piece him up. He's going to land some good shots, and I think he'll probably win this by decision as long as he can defend those takedowns. Um, so yeah, for the pick here, I'm going to go with Brad Tavares, and there's some value there, I believe, on his money line. Um, but yeah, moving on to the main event, we've got Brandon Royval, Raw Dog versus Tatsuro Taira. This is definitely an intriguing one. Um, I think, man, I don't know. This is a tricky one to. Uh, this is a tricky one. They've got Tatsuro Taira here as a minus 200 favorite, and it just seems wide to me. This is a fight that seems closer to a pick 'em. Um, I think that their striking is going to be moderately close. Brandon Royval may have some better striking, but Taira definitely has some good hands. As we've seen, he's knocked out an opponent or two, and he's got fast hands for sure. He looked good against Alex Perez. He was able to, of course, as we know, he was able to blow out Alex Perez's knee with that cranky or that weird body lock leg crank he was doing. I don't think it was on purpose, but he was able to win that fight via TKO. And Brandon Royval, he's coming off a win to Brandon Moreno. It was a close fight, as we know, split decision win for him. He looked good. I just don't know if Brandon Royval is going to be able to keep up with the activity and activity in the grappling for Tatsuro Taira. Brandon Royval is a very active fighter, but the grappling activity from Tatsuro Taira is going to be very dangerous for Brandon Royval. Um, yeah, I think I've got to go with the Tatsuro Taira side here. Probably it's going to probably be by decision, but if he's able to get onto Brandon Royval's back, it could be real trouble for him. He could find a submission, and if he can flatten him out, he could absolutely find a TKO as well. So for the pick here, I'm going to go with Tatsuro Taira. However, I do think that Brandon Royval will be able to hang in there with him. His grappling won't be as good as Tatsuro Taira's, but his striking will be better. Those knees up the middle that he timed against Nicolau. It's a great weapon of his. Um, but yeah, the pick has got to be Tatsu Taira for me. He's just his grappling is phenomenal, and I think he'll win this and probably go on to challenge Pantoja for the flyweight strap, and that'll be an intriguing matchup as intriguing matchup on its own. But again, he's got to get through Brandon Royval here first. But yeah, so that is the fight card. Like I said, this is the first video for Saucy Picks MMA. I'm excited to be here, excited to do this. I'm on all social medias at SaucyPicksMMA. You can find me on TikTok, on Instagram, Facebook, all social medias. Hit that like and subscribe. I'll be back every week for more fight card breakdowns, and yeah, I'm excited to be on this journey with all of you. So anyway, hit that like and subscribe, and I will see you next week.